And welcome back to the National Archives Virtual Genealogy Fair. My name is Andrea Matney. We are broadcasting live from the Washington, D.C. building. And this morning we now have lecture number 8, The Morning After, Changes as Reflected in Morning Reports. Our speaker is Theresa Fitzgerald. Theresa will explain how the Morning Report collection can help a family historian trace a veteran's movements and daily unit activities throughout their time in the war. She will also explain the limitations regarding access to these records. Ms. Fitzgerald is a supervisory reference archivist for research services at the National Archives at St. Louis. I am now turning the broadcast over to Theresa Fitzgerald.
The morning reports I will focus on this morning will be those that have been accessioned into the National Archives and Records Administration. These records are open to the public and available in our research room. The archival morning reports typically do not contain information that would be protected by the Personal Privacy Act exemption. This would include Social Security numbers. There are some anomalies. In some cases, a Social Security number might pop up, but for the most part, the ones that are archival will not contain the Social Security numbers. We're having some technical difficulties here in St. Louis. All right. So unlike the archival morning reports, this slide includes all of them that are open to the public and not open to the public. So Army from 1912 to 1959 is archival and open to the public. 1960 to 1980 is not. And then the Air Force from 1947 and 1966 is open to the public. Those Army morning reports include the Army Air Corps and Army Air Forces. So just a quick blurb for the National Personnel Records Center. Unlike the archival morning reports that belong to NARA, the non-archival morning reports do contain social security numbers and are not open to the public. However, the NPRC will make copies of the requested reports, redact sensitive information, and provide this for a fee. They will search a 3-month period of those records. If you would like to request the non-archival morning reports, you may write to their facility, and you will be informed of their fee schedule upon receipt of the request. So the format of the morning reports is that they are on microfilm. Prior to this, the morning reports were originally comprised of individual paper cards or paper slips. The space constraints drove the Army to microfilm these and others in the 1950s. It was done to consolidate the paper documents, and it made it easier to reference the material. They were microfilmed onto silver film, which I will get to that definition later. And then they were used to create a diazo film, which I will also define that later as well. So this is an example of a morning report. This particular image is from the microfilm. However, it does depict what the individual paper would have looked like. They were created as part of personnel and payroll functions by the Army and Air Force, and used to verify events or assignments which may not be documented in an individual's official military personnel file. The morning report reveals the strength of the organization as well as all changes in duties and status of the personnel which occurred in the preceding 24 hours. The morning reports were completed at all levels of an organization down to the lowest echelon. The morning reports exist from division level to company level. There is an index that was created to access these morning reports. The index is probably visually more appealing than the slide and easier to understand, but I will try to explain it as best I can. In order to conduct a search of the morning reports, a researcher must know the specific organization or unit to which the soldier or airman was assigned. This information may be found in an OMPF, on a separation document, and in some cases a final pay voucher if available. As I said, the index is slightly awkward to explain via virtual genealogy fair. It is microfilmed as well and is held in our archival research room. It is accessible to our researchers in order to identify the specific reels of microfilm for the time period and unit that they seek or wish to look at. Once the reels have been identified, researchers may submit requests for those reels to be pulled by our archival research room staff. The pull times are every hour on the half hour. So what do they contain? This slide depicts the specific content you can locate in the morning report relating to the organization as a whole. So disbandment, efficiency, gains and losses, movements, modes of travel, reorganization, inactivation, and geographical locations. In some slides, or some microfilm reports, they can be quite detailed as far as geographical location, going as far as explaining the weather and the temperature, what weather they feel may be upcoming, or what was in the past. It also contains information specifically relating to the individual. This slide and the following slide contains the specific content you can locate in a morning report relating to the specific veteran. A veteran's name will only appear on the morning report if he is receiving a change in status such as the ones that appeared on slide 11 and this current slide 12. This means that you may scroll through several pages of morning reports before seeing your specific veteran's name. But not to worry, unless the document notes he had a change in status, such as moving to a different unit or medical facility, then he is still with that unit. If you do see that he has moved to a different unit, then you may go back and consult the index for the new unit's microfilm reel information and continue following his movement throughout his time in service. Oh, I accidentally. So the current use of these records are for record reconstruction and historical value. The historical value of a unit or individual as important events are recorded is what you can find on these. They may also have reports on weather, recaps on battles they encountered, what town they are in, encountering POWs, and other things they felt like recording. These overall reports and the detail they contain can be sporadic, but the information on slides 11 and 12, 10, 11, and 12 are always there. So, why would we be reconstructing records? Our facility suffered a fire in 1973 that specifically affected the official military personnel files of veterans that may also have entries that can be found on morning reports. This includes the Army and Air Force from 1912 to approximately 1963, with Air Force being affected, the last names Hubbard through Z. Records damaged or lost include over 17 million military records. The damage was sustained from both fire and water. The morning reports, as discussed, can be a great alternative record for OMPF reconstruction. However, the microfilmed morning reports were affected by the fire as well, and this is a depiction of morning reports after the fire occurred. These are some examples of microfilm reels that were affected by fire and heat. So after the fire of 1973, the General Services Administration, which is what the organization was under, or which the organization was classified as until 1985 when we became NARA, worked tirelessly to clean up, rehouse, and account for records, as well as salvage and repair the remainder of the building and its contents. During this time, they regularly made GSA status reports regarding the records, paper and microfilm, and the building and accessory repairs. The following few slides is a streamlined timeline based on status reports that relate to microfilm updates only. So, for example, on August 21st to 22nd in 1973, they continued cataloging microfilm to determine damage versus undamaged film. On August 30th, they resumed microfilm inspection, matching negative masters and diazo copies to restore lost images. They delivered microfilm of both masters and diazo copies to see if they could be merged into a single reel for reproduction, either through direct reproduction or return to paper and film. On September 11th, they examined 262 rolls of washed microfilm. 92 of those showed damage. And on September 20th, they examined 582 reels of microfilm for fire damage. By this date, 4,004 had been examined, leaving a backlog of 268 reels to be examined. They checked the status of microfilm copying contract, diazo and masters, showing damage were sent to Kodak at Rochester. No report as to feasibility of merging the dissimilar films for reproducing into a dupe master. And a gentleman by the name of Jim Gear was to follow up on that. On October 15th, all the microfilm rolls had been examined for damage and were replaced in their proper sequence. Downgrading or declassifying classified rolls was being considered. And on the 17th in 1973, examination and return of damaged microfilm to former locations was completed within 1 man-hour. So what did all this culminate in? This page is the official report and final status report of the efforts on behalf of the GSA after the fire. After the disaster and attempt to salvage, we ended up with 1 silver copy of microfilm on 100-foot rolls. This was the old original damaged silver film. 1 new silver master copy on 100,000-foot reels, and 2 diazo service copies. The original silver was damaged and incomplete due to the fire. It is no longer a viable source of information. Because the original silver received damage from the fire, the original diazo service copy was used to splice in replacement images that had been lost due to fire damage. Once this melding was completed, it was refilmed in its entirety to create the new 1,000-foot reel silver master copy. Then, from that reel, 2 new diazo reference copies were created as service copies. So number 17, it's tiny on my screen. Hopefully you can read it. It's very confusing. I can't tell you how many times I reread that paragraph in the past few months. But that was a breakdown of basically what that paragraph says. So what is silver film? Silver film is a more expensive duplicating process, but has a great image quality and very long archival life when filmed and stored properly. It is the ideal storage medium for microfilm information, or information that's contained on microfilm. Diazo film is a low-cost copying media with a lower archival life. They're normally used for just normal commercial use, and it's ideal for an economical copying media. So where are all these stored after the fire? After the fire, it was decided that not all of the microfilm morning reports should be held in one location in the event of another disaster. The main backup for the entire collection is the 1,000-foot reels of morning reports noted previously. This film is now stored with the smaller 100 roll silver film, the original that was affected by the fire, in Lenexa, Kansas. The 2 Daiso copies that were created as a result of the fire were moved into non-temperature controlled environments. This is in 1973, in our old building, the one that was affected by the fire, until we moved to our current facility in 2011. The Daiso copy with the least images lost also has the most brittle of film. Due to the delicate condition, it is currently stored in a temperature-controlled setting in our Valmeyer, Illinois facility and is not currently available for public use. The Daiso copy that has sustained the most image loss due to fading and use has much stronger film. As such, this is used as the primary reference copy and is kept on site in temperature-controlled storage behind our archival research room in St. Louis, Missouri, and is available to researchers. Here are some examples. Due to poor storage and high use, there has been sustained damage to both Daiso copies in our holdings. Due to the brittle nature of the microfilm held in our Valmeyer, Illinois facility, we do not allow researchers to handle this film. However, we are often questioned about why this is, and question as to whether the Valmeyer Daiso film has better image quality. So the following slides depict the different image qualities between the Daiso reference copies, between the Daiso reference copy that is used on-site and the copy that is stored in the off-site facility. The current slide shows both slides having similar and good image quality. This depicts the St. Louis on-site film having a poor image quality than the film stored off-site. Believe it or not, they both look kind of bad. This slide depicts St. Louis on-site film having a better image quality than the film stored off-site. The off-site film is quite distorted. And slide 28 depicts both sets of film having a poor image quality. So why don't we just use the silver master rolls? That should actually be reels, I think. Oh, it's both, reels and rolls. So if you remember the slide, 21, the original silver copy is no longer viable due to the fire. It is believed that the silver master, that silver copy, even though it was damaged, was used during the time period following the fire until Daiso duplicates could be created. Deterioration due to lack of environmental monitoring was detected in the form of warping, redox, which is an oxidation of the film, where little tiny circles that look like a tree appears and destroys the silver and the image itself. It eats through it. And fusing also from water and heat damage. The roll fused together. Additionally, it is noted on the slide that 37 cubic feet of film is missing from those original silver rolls. This 37 cubic feet of missing film is part of what was spliced into the new 1,000 feet reel copies to create a complete set in 1973. We have many concerns about this collection. They are all in various stages of deterioration, and due to the continued use, the Daiso copies. The World War I, World War II, and Korea-era microfilm morning reports are the most heavily damaged, and they are reaching a critical level of concern that will require an alteration to current use processes in the future. The situation is such that the National Archives at St. Louis has suspended the sale of duplicate microfilm rolls and paper reproductions to off-site researchers. Due to the condition and quality of the rolls, we cannot provide quality duplicate copies for customers. Why don't we digitize them? We'd love to. However, it is too costly, technically challenging. NARA is currently evaluating digitization strategies for certain selections of morning reports that are more heavily accessed. Additionally, cataloging and metadata creation for each image would be challenging due to the number of images and obscure nature of the index. If you'd like to view these morning reports in person, as that is the only way you can view them, you may do so by visiting our archival research room. You may make an appointment by calling the number listed on the slide or by sending an email to the email address listed. Alternatively, if you cannot make it to our facility, you may hire an independent researcher. A list of those researchers for hire may be found at the website listed on this slide. Our archival research room is located at 1 Archives Drive in St. Louis, Missouri, and is open Monday through Friday. This contact information is contact information relating to general archival inquiries, persons of exceptional prominence. There are lists of where some forms are, our website in general. It's not specific to morning reports. You are welcome to contact any of these email addresses or visit the websites. It's just a handy slide I like to give out. I couldn't have done this presentation without Noah Durham, who is the Assistant Preservation Officer, Corey Stewart, who is one of the reference archivists that assisted me greatly, and Keith Owens. All of their preservation facts and figures and historical records kept in the history files were of great use and definitely helped me with this presentation. I am open to answering questions. It does not specifically have to be about this presentation. I do work with all of the military records, auxiliary, and OMPS, as well as archival civilian OPS. So if you have any questions relating to military records at the National Archives at St. Louis, I am willing to answer them.
Thank you, Theresa. This is Diane, and you have a lot of questions.
Oh.
So the first one is, what about the Navy records?
The Navy did not keep morning reports like this. I believe those records would be called deck logs, and diaries would be the other term. Those are located in College Park in Washington, D.C.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Do these records exist for the Marine Corps?
No, the Marine Corps would be the same as the Navy.
Okay, thank you. What about the other military branch, the U.S. Coast Guard?
I am unfamiliar with the equivalent of morning reports, what the equivalent would be to the Coast Guard. that is something that I would be happy to research for you if you wanted to email me or just send a general reference inquiry to that email address on slide 34.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Were morning reports created after World War I and before World War II?
Yes, the morning reports cover World War I, the interim period to World War II, as well as the interim period to Korea. They actually were created up until, I believe they go a little bit after 1980. They get less detailed, though. They're not as interesting when you go later.
Okay. Next question. Do morning reports also include leave for a soldier and where they went on leave?
It would say that they were TDY, but it would not say where they went.
Okay, next question. If you have a family member's DD 214 and accompanying documents, should those be scanned in and sent to you?
You are welcome to send us copies for reconstruction of lost OMPFs in the fire. We will take them to note that they did have military service. They will be marked as an unofficial source, however, as they are not coming from an official government entity. But we do accept them.
Okay, next question. Were there duplicate copies of microfilm made, or were the reels damaged the only copies?
There were duplicates made in 1973, but the duplicates were made from the damaged copies.
Okay. Next question. My granduncle served in the U.S. Army in World War I for a full year. Does this mean there would be morning reports for his unit? And this person has put in the 365 morning reports for his unit.
Yes, they should exist.
Okay. What kind of information is available for Merchant Marines / Army transport?
We do have Army transport records in our civilian OPF records. Currently, we have the records of deceased merchant seamen and seaman licenses, but the Merchant Marines and the Coast Guard still hold the majority of the records for the Merchant Marines.
Thank you. Next question. I'm looking for information on my grandfather, who was stationed at Fort Sherman at Panama Canal during 1916-ish to 1918. Would these be available?
Yes.
Like these succinct answers. Yes. Where are the master copies kept?
The two master silvers are kept in Lenexa. I have that on my slide. They are kept in Kansas. It's either Lee Summit or Lenexa. I'm looking. Yes, Lenexa, Kansas. Both of the silver sets are kept there. The Diazo copy that is more brittle but has better image quality is kept in Valmeyer, Illinois. And the Diazo set that has a stronger film but lesser image quality is kept on site here for reference purposes.
Thank you. Do you have the stamina for 5 more questions?
I think so.
Okay. My father-in-law's father died of wounds in World War II. His records were some of the ones lost in the fire. I found some information about his unit earlier. Would the morning reports be useful to us?
Yes, you would be able to track his movements through the morning reports. They should indicate that he was injured and went to a medical facility if that is what occurred. and it could be a great source for you.
Great, thank you. Next question. Was the poor image quality due to the fire, or were they originally filmed with the same quality?
They were filmed in the 1950s and used very heavily by the Army and GSA prior to the fire, and then they incurred fire damage. So it was a mixture of use and fire, and then refilming from the already poor and damaged quality created a poor image quality when it was reproduced after the fire of 1973. So it's a combination of just poor image quality all around. Now, I can't say that in 1950 they didn't look immaculate, but with as much as they were used, there was a lot of fading.
So these records are a real challenge.
Yes.
Okay, we've got some basic research questions too. What is the search process to view the morning reports?
So if you would come to our facility, you would have your unit information. One of our specialists would assist you with using the index to locate the specific microfilm reel boxes that you need pertaining to your unit and to the time period you're looking for. Once that was determined, those records would be pulled and you can begin going through the microfilm on one of our microfilm readers.
Okay, thank you. How do I request and pay for morning report records?
Well, you can only view these records on site, so you would need to come to our facility or hire a researcher to do it for you.
And the question continues, how would I pay for this?
If you were to come to our facility and print out copies of morning reports, it would be, I can't think of, I believe 25 or 40 cents a page, and then you would take it to our fee desk and they would count the pages and determine how much you owe. You can pay by credit card, cash, or check.
Thank you. What identification is needed to research records on site for direct relatives?
We do require a photo ID, a legitimate photo ID, government issued, so your driver's license. These records are open to the public if you're specifically talking about morning reports. Also, any archival official military personnel file is open to the public, so you would not necessarily need to prove that you are a member of the family.
Thank you. Next question. Were military records like DD-214s filed at state and local levels?
Yes. After the wars, World War I and World War II, it was very common for soldiers returning home to file their copies of their SEPDOCs or their 214s with their local governments.
Okay, next question. Are there any morning reports from Korea for the dates span 1950 to 51?
Yes, we have the morning reports for the Army from 1912 to 1959. Those are open to the public. And then for the Air Force, 1947 to 1966, those are also open to the public.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Is there a way to determine the unit of an Army soldier of World War I?
Well, you could do that by consulting the separation document that might be held at a local facility. If we have any information here that was not affected by the fire, we would possibly be able to locate unit information there as well. There are several online resources, Ancestry.com, NARA AAD, the NARA catalog. Also, final pay vouchers sometimes list the unit that the soldier would have served with.
Okay, thank you. Theresa, that is the long list of questions. If we didn't get your question, or if it comes to you as soon as we click off on this presentation, please write and email us at inquire@nara.gov, and we'll get your letters to the appropriate archivist. Thank you, Theresa. We
Thank
will now resume at 12 o'clock noon.